The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky, silent witnesses to the smallest ship against the largest fleet ever seen in human history. Commander Arik stood on the bridge of the horizon, his hands tight around the rail, his eyes scanning the distant shapes of the enemy vessels. The ships were enormous, their metal bodies gleaming like dark moons, and they moved in perfect formation, a deadly dance that could crush worlds. Around him, the crew whispered nervously, their fear hiding behind brave faces. "Sir, they are laughing at us," Lieutenant Mara said softly, pointing to the main view screen, where the enemy fleet's holographic messages flickered, mocking the humans. "They say we will be destroyed before we even fire a shot." Arik did not answer immediately, his mind working quickly, calculating the odds that seemed impossible. The humans had only one small ship, modest weapons, and limited shields, while the enemy controlled hundreds of ships, equipped with the latest weapons technology. "We have something they do not," he finally said, his voice calm but firm. "They may have numbers, but we have speed and strategy." In the human fleet's hangar, engineers were busy, running over last-minute checks on the ship's engine. "It is impossible to outrun them," a young engineer muttered, glancing nervously at the massive enemy fleet on the screens. "They will catch us in seconds." But Arik knew they had one advantage, one secret weapon that the enemy could not understand, something so simple yet so deadly that it could change everything in a single moment. The crew may have doubted themselves, but Arik's confidence was not blind. It was based on years of preparation, study, and belief in human ingenuity. Outside the ship, the galaxy seemed calm, but inside, tension was rising. Every crew member felt the weight of the moment. Every blinking light, every faint hum of the engines reminded them that this was more than a battle. It was a test of survival. The humans were facing what everyone else called an impossible fight, a battle that would be remembered for centuries if they survived. Arik walked along the bridge, his boots echoing on the metal floor, stopping at each officer, offering a brief word of encouragement. "Focus on your stations," he said. "Trust the ship and trust each other." The crew nodded, some still fearful, some already feeling a spark of hope, a tiny flame in the darkness of despair. From the enemy fleet, massive ships moved closer, their weapons systems powering up, ready to destroy the humans with ease. "Sir, they are preparing the first strike," Mara said, tension in her voice. "They are sure we cannot survive." Arik looked at the stars, thinking about Earth, about the people who relied on them. "Let them think that," he said quietly. "We will show them what humans can do." The crew listened, their fear slowly turning into determination, courage slowly replacing doubt. Suddenly, alarms sounded across the bridge, red lights flashing, the hum of the engines deepening. The Horizon's engines roared to life, the small ship trembling under the power of its hyper. "All hands, prepare for jump," Arik commanded, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The crew moved quickly, efficient, every movement practiced, every command precise. Outside, the enemy ships closed in, their shadows growing larger against the distant stars. "They think they have us," Arik muttered, "but they have no idea what is coming." As the human ship prepared to leap into the unknown, small moments of humanity appeared. Mara took a deep breath, remembering her family, thinking about the home she might never see again. The young engineer looked at the engine readouts one last time, hoping everything would work. The navigator's hands shook slightly, but he focused, trusting in the training that had prepared him for this day. Arik stood at the command console, watching the enemy approach, and felt a thrill of fear mixed with excitement. This was it, the moment when humans would either rise or fall. The stars outside blurred slightly as the engines began their final charge, the horizon vibrating under the immense power. Then, just as the enemy fleet raised their weapons, a sudden pulse ran through the ship, a quiet energy that no one else could see. The ship shuddered as if alive, and for a moment, all fear was replaced with a strange calm. Arik knew this was the moment that could change everything. One move, one decision, could make the difference between survival and destruction. "Steady," he whispered, almost to himself. "One step at a time, one breath, one chance." The human ship glided forward, small but determined, the galaxy around it vast and indifferent. And yet, in that small ship, filled with ordinary humans, there was a spark that no enemy could measure, a courage born of hope, necessity, and the unyielding belief that humans could fight against impossible odds. The enemy fleet laughed, their confidence unshaken, their eyes blind to the quiet storm that had begun. The horizon moved faster, weaving between massive ships, its small engines blazing, and for the first time, a sense of wonder appeared in the eyes of the crew. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive this. Maybe they could win. And as the first shots were about to fire, the humans held their breath, ready to prove that even the smallest ship could challenge the greatest fleet, and that no one should ever underestimate what humanity could do. The enemy fleet laughed, their massive ships glinting in the cold light of distant stars. "Look at them," General Vorak sneered, his voice booming through the command deck. "A single human ship thinks it can challenge us." His officers chuckled, shaking their heads in disbelief. Their confidence was absolute, built on centuries of victories, and yet none of them had faced a human crew that dared to defy the odds. On the horizon, the human crew felt the tension tighten like a coil. Every glance at the enemy ships reminded them how fragile they were. And yet, Arik refused to let fear control them. "Ignore their mockery," he said firmly. "They think they know the outcome, but they have never seen humans fight like this." Lieutenant Mara tapped on the controls, scanning the enemy formations. "Sir, they are taunting us directly," she said, pointing to a message broadcasted across the fleet's comms. The enemy displayed images of the humans, small ships surrounded by their massive warships. "You are ants among gods," the message read. "Prepare to be crushed." A ripple of nervous laughter ran through the human crew, but Arik's calm presence steadied them. "Let them laugh," he said. "Laughter is the sound of fear before defeat." He turned to the navigator. "Plot a course that uses their confidence against them. Make them chase shadows while we prepare our real strike." In the enemy command center, the mocking continued. Officers bet among themselves how quickly the humans would fall. They spoke freely of the humans' weakness, calling them slow, fragile, and hopeless. "They don't even know the meaning of strategy," one officer said with a smirk. "This will be over in minutes." Back on the human ship, Mara's fingers danced over the console, her eyes sharp, her mind analyzing every movement of the enemy. "They are overconfident," she said quietly. "They believe speed is all we have, but they do not understand our plan." Arik smiled faintly. The tension on the bridge mixed with excitement. He had spent months studying the enemy fleet, learning every habit, every predictable move. The humans had no power to match the enemy's weapons directly, but their speed, cunning, and the hidden strength of their ship were enough to turn the tables. The enemy fleet fired warning shots, massive energy beams, slicing the vacuum of space. The horizon darted between them, small and fast, barely visible against the explosions. The humans' hearts raced as the lasers streaked past, but none hit, and the crew realized that this was more than luck. It was strategy. It was the first sign that the humans had a chance. "They think they have us cornered," Arik said quietly, watching the enemy's formations shift. "But the real game begins when they least expect it." Mara nodded, feeling a spark of hope ignite. For the first time, the enemy's arrogance seemed like a weakness they could exploit. The enemy continued their mockery, sending messages that taunted the human crew, promising destruction, promising humiliation. But the crew no longer felt fear, only determination. They began to move with precision, following Arik's commands, trusting each other, trusting the ship, and trusting the small chance that humans could survive what everyone else called impossible. Suddenly, the enemy fleet opened their formation slightly, their focus on laughing at the humans instead of planning the attack. "Now," Arik whispered, a quiet thrill in his voice, "watch closely. This is where we turn their arrogance into their weakness." Mara's hands flew across the controls, executing commands that had been practiced thousands of times in simulations. The ship twisted, darted, and glided, moving in ways the enemy did not anticipate. "They cannot predict us," Mara said. "They are blind to what we can do." In the enemy fleet, officers frowned, sensing the humans were acting unpredictably. General Vorak's frown deepened. "Why are they still moving?" he demanded. "They should be destroyed by now." But the humans moved like shadows, small, agile, impossible to target. Their laughter had turned into frustration as their confidence began to waver. Arik watched, calm and focused, his mind racing through possibilities. "Prepare the first strike," he said, a faint smile on his lips. "One blast is all it will take to change everything." The crew nodded, knowing that this moment would decide the fate of their people, the fate of their planet. And as the enemy continued the mockery, the humans held their positions, waiting patiently, letting arrogance blind their enemies. The mockery that had once intimidated them now fueled their determination. Every insult, every taunt, became energy that sharpened their focus. Their plan was simple but deadly. A single shot would turn laughter into chaos. The horizon moved gracefully through the enemy fleet, small but precise, its movements almost like a dance. The crew felt the excitement and fear mixed together, a powerful combination that made every heart beat faster, and every mind think sharper. Soon, Arik whispered, looking at the massive enemy ships, they will see what humans are capable of, and for the first time, the crew believed it. The enemy laughed, unaware that their mocking had only made the humans stronger, ready for the moment that would come. The moment when a single blast would end the battle before it began. The stars stretched endlessly as the enemy fleet loomed closer, their massive ships casting dark shadows across the void. The humans' small ship, the Horizon, moved silently, its engines humming softly, almost invisible against the bright weapons fire of the enemy. Every crew member held their breath, feeling the tension tighten like a steel band around their hearts. Enemy ships are within range, Lieutenant Mara reported, her voice steady but her eyes wide. They are preparing to fire. Commander Arik nodded, watching the enemy formations shift, a mixture of fear and determination in his chest. Steady, he said. Wait for the right moment. Let them make the first mistake. The enemy opened fire. Massive beams of energy streaking through space, bright and deadly. The horizon twisted and weaved, small and fast, dodging each attack by mere meters. The crew's hands flew over controls, their movements precise, practiced, yet their hearts raced with adrenaline. Keep moving, Arik shouted. Do not give them a target. They cannot predict us. The human ship darted between massive enemy vessels, its engines blazing like a comet. The enemy fired again, their confidence slightly shaken. For the first time they realized the humans were not as weak as they had believed. Mara glanced at the targeting system. Sir, they are trying to surround us, she said, but their timing is off. Arik's lips curled in a faint smile. Exactly what we need, he said. We let them think they have the advantage, and then we strike. The first shots from the humans' weapons barely scratched the surface of the enemy shields, but it was enough to surprise them. Tiny sparks of damage flashing across the massive hulls. Officers in the enemy fleet frowned, their laughter replaced with confusion. What are they doing? One shouted, our weapons should destroy them instantly. Arik's eyes scanned the fleet, searching for the perfect opportunity. Mara, adjust the vector slightly to starboard. We need a clear shot at the central cruiser. Mara nodded, her fingers flying over the controls, executing his commands with perfect precision. The small ship weaved through laser fire, dodging destruction at every turn. On the bridge, the crew's fear was slowly replaced with focus, determination. The young engineer checked the engines repeatedly, ensuring the hyperdrive could hold. It will work, he whispered, if we time it right. One shot will end this. The enemy fired again, massive cannons lighting up the darkness of space. Explosions rippled through the void, but the horizon moved like a shadow, its small form slipping between the enemy attacks. For the first time, some enemy officers paused, realizing that speed alone might not be enough. Sir, they are regrouping, Mara said. Trying to flank us. Arik nodded. Let them come, he said quietly. We will meet them exactly where we want them. The human's patience was a weapon itself. Every movement calculated, every second deliberate. The first encounter was chaotic, a storm of light and fire, but the humans stayed calm. Their ship danced between the giants, dodging lasers, weaving between massive hulls. Their hearts pounded, but they did not falter. Every eye focused on the target, every hand ready for the critical moment. Then came the brief pause, the calm before the storm. The enemy fleet, confident and arrogant, formed what they believed was an inescapable trap. Their massive ships bristling with weapons. They thought the humans were cornered. Arik leaned over the console, eyes sharp, mind racing. Now, he whispered, prepare for the first strike, the one that will change everything. The crew nodded silently, hearts pounding, fingers steady over the triggers. The small horizon moved into position, perfectly aligned with the central cruiser. The enemy had no idea what was coming, their arrogance blinding them to the humans' cunning. They laughed nervously, thinking the humans were trapped. That victory was certain, but the humans were patient, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the instant when one precise strike could destroy what hundreds of shots could not. The bridge of the horizon was tense, silent except for the hum of the engines and the faint clicks of controls. Mara's hand hovered over the fire button, The young engineer's eyes flickered between power readings and the enemy target. The navigator held his breath, ready to guide the ship through the chaos after the strike. Arik glanced at the enemy, their massive cruisers unaware, their weapons aimed at shadows. "This is it," he whispered. The moment no one believed could happen, the crew steadied themselves, the small spark of hope growing into a flame, a belief that they could turn the impossible into reality. And as the first strike was about to be launched, the enemy still laughed, still mocked, unaware that the battle they thought was certain was about to end before it had truly begun. The humans, small but precise, ready but underestimated, held their breath, waiting for the moment that would decide everything. The horizon hung in the void, small and precise, its engines humming like a living heartbeat. Commander Arik's eyes scanned the massive enemy cruiser before him. Every detail of the target burned into his mind. This was the moment they had trained for, the moment where patience and strategy would turn the tide. "Ready, the weapon," Arik commanded quietly, his voice calm but firm. The crew obeyed instantly, moving with precision, every hand steady, despite the fear racing through their veins. The young engineer checked the power levels one last time, confirming that the ship's hidden cannon was fully charged, capable of a single devastating strike. The enemy fleet remained confident, their arrogance still blinding them. "They are trapped," one officer boasted over the comms. "They cannot escape." Massive ships flanked the horizon, weapons charged, waiting to obliterate the small human vessel. Yet they had no idea the humans had planned this moment for months. Every move measured, every second calculated. Arik leaned over the console, focusing on the central cruiser. "Hold fire until the exact moment," he whispered. "Timing is everything." The crew's eyes followed him, trusting every decision, believing in the skill and courage that had brought them this far. The cruiser in front of them was immense, its shields glowing, its weapons aimed at the small ship like giant claws ready to strike. But the humans were patient, letting the enemy focus on what they thought was victory, letting arrogance blind them. Mara's hands hovered over the fire controls, her pulse racing. The navigator adjusted the ship's position slightly, making a perfect angle for the shot. The young engineer watched the energy build up. A single blast contained enough power to end the battle instantly. "Now," Arik whispered, and Mara pressed the trigger. The weapon unleashed its energy in a brilliant pulse, a concentrated beam of light that tore through space, straight and deadly. It struck the enemy cruiser with perfect precision, breaching shields, exploding through the hull, and sending a shockwave across the surrounding fleet. The enemy officers froze, disbelief replacing their arrogance. "What happened?" one shouted, staring at the massive cruiser now erupting in flames. "Our weapons, they didn't." Chaos rippled through the fleet, massive ships colliding as the shockwave spread. The humans' single strike had destroyed the central command, breaking the formation and leaving the enemy stunned. On the horizon, the crew exhaled, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They had done the impossible. One small ship, underestimated by everyone, had changed the course of the battle with a single shot. The crew looked at each other, smiles breaking through the tension, relief and excitement mingling in their hearts. But Arik did not celebrate yet, his eyes still on the remaining enemy ships. "Stay sharp," he said. "The battle is not over." But the tide has turned. The enemy fleet scrambled, confusion spreading like wildfire, their formation broken, their morale shattered. The humans moved quickly, using speed and strategy to avoid further attacks, while the enemy struggled to regroup. The horizon darted between the remaining enemy ships, each movement precise, calculated, and deadly. Every human aboard knew the significance of what they had done. They had shown that courage, strategy, and ingenuity could defeat even the most powerful enemy. They had turned mockery into victory, disbelief into awe. The enemy attempted to fire, but their coordination was gone. The humans used this moment to escape and regroup, their ship weaving between lasers and debris. They were small, but every move counted, every decision critical. The shockwave from the single blast had bought them the precious time needed to survive and fight again. In the enemy fleet, officers whispered nervously, fear replacing arrogance. They struck us with one shot, one muttered. How is this possible?" Arik watched from high.